His wife was there and said, "Oh, you play Twilight Imperium too?" And I was like, "Oh no, just for our YouTube channel. Like, we're gonna play it for the first time." And she was like, "Oh, good, because we call ourselves the Twilight Imperium Widows." What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel. This is Father Greg. We are continuing our top 10 board games on Board Game Geek series, where we are playing, going deep, pretty deep, into each of these titles, and ultimately asking the question, are these worthy of the top 10 spot on Board Game Geek?
Right.
How are you feeling things are going so far?
Things are rolling along, baby. We're clipping on.
That's right.
It's happening.
We took a little hiatus. Father Greg just wanted to stay at home this weekend.
Needed some time to rest after these games.
That's right. That's right.
Heavy beast.
And so today we're talking about Spirit Island.
Mm-hmm.
The meatiest cooperative game I've ever laid hands on.
Wow. Bold. Yeah, fair.
What else is there?
Fair, probably. I'd have to think about that one, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, so it's intense, it is there, and we're going to talk all about it. So if you've seen some of these videos before, you know what we do. We take comments from Board Game Geek of people reviewing, talking about these games, and we kind of bounce off of users' comments to give our own thoughts and opinions about the game. And then at the very tail end of the video, we talk a little bit about games that we think are suitable comparisons or replacements for this game. So without any further ado, party people, let's get into our first comment. This is a 10 rating on Board Game Geek, and this is Wilsonated, which is a great username.
Wilsonated.
I wish I was Wilsonated. Amazing co-op that feels like I'm always one step behind and too late, but late game powers truly make one godlike. So this is a 10 that recognizes kind of what I would say is one of the core conundrums of the game. I wouldn't call it a problem, just kind of something that the game presents, which is you are trying to fend off these invaders on your island, and they are coming fast and furious. And there's this really sense of overwhelming against the odds thing happening right out of the gate. Like I was under the impression both times we played that like it really should have started off a little bit more like low key, but it is just like a boom, you are in it and you gotta like work hard to get your sort of ground laid for the rest of the game, or else you're toast. Our first game, we were toast in like 3 rounds.
Right, yeah, we lost pretty much as early as you possibly could.
Yeah, just done. Boom. This whole sense of feeling behind. But then this whole idea that as you progress, the powers that you're able to have and the cards that you're playing, your objectives are getting a little easier at the same time.
Right.
The amount of cards you're able to play, the energy that you're able to have, it does have this nice kind of crescendo, this cadence of, okay, whoa, like I can actually do some stuff now. Like I can actually make this work. Maybe this is gonna happen.
That's right.
I think I did really enjoy the feeling of, yes, like the feeling of power. Like I was like drawing energy from the sea and the forest, and I don't know what the hell you're doing, but like,
Right, yeah.
felt good. What's your sense of this whole game arc?
For sure. So game arc is an interesting thing in this where, yeah, you start out, because the game starts out populated. Like the board starts out with cities and towns and explorers like already on the board. Everything's kind of set up, and you start out very weak. Like your guy starts out with getting 1 energy a turn and he can play 1 card a turn or something. And it takes some time before you can kind of build that up. And so you spend a lot of time like building this up as the board is just kind of like getting worse and worse and worse. Until you like reach this level where you kind of get over this like hump, and then you realize like, okay, maybe I can do this. Now, we never actually got there because we never actually won the game. But like I felt like at least in our second game we were closer to that hump. I could kind of like I could kind of give that sense of like, okay, we've kind of got things maybe under control. Whereas the first game, it just felt like completely hopeless. Like
Yes.
There was not a chance in hell that we were ever going to win this.
No. And we were only a few key movements away, and I can tell you sort of what the movements were that we could have kind of got around.
And there's an interesting kind of thing that happens in this game where a card shows up and it first goes into like the explore spot, and then it moves into the build spot, and then it moves into the ravage spot.
Yes.
So if you can ever like when something gets explored and you can like eradicate that area right away, it's like you know that they're not going to build and they're not going to ravage in that like whatever, that sand area or whatever. It's a kind of interesting mechanic where when you start off something, when you accomplish something small, it has like a big after effect. Like you just took off one guy from the map, but that one guy is no longer going to build a town, and that town is no longer going to cause blight, and like that blight is no longer going to spread and cascade and cause all kinds of more like nightmarish things. So it's like in that first turn, every little guy that you can get rid of is extremely valuable.
Yes.
Because if you can get rid of even just one guy, it's like all of a sudden that's going to play out in a lot of consequences throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't, if you leave one guy on the map,
yes,
that one guy is going to wreak havoc. Like if you pay no attention.
I was going to say, like that's the flip side to what you were just expressing, is that if you have like a big populated region and you're trying to kind of go for it, if you don't obliterate it, if you don't clear it out completely, it may as well have not have even been trying to go after that. It's just kind of a bunch of wasted energy. Not entirely, but that's what it feels like. And so that's the discouraging side of it. It's just like, yes, if you can do that, it pays dividends round after round where you're like, oh, we're not exploring here, and we're not ravaging here, and we're not doing that because we cleared that stuff out. Great. But if not, oh boy.
The next thing is Vegan Dodo.
Vegan Dodo!
7.5. And he said a great theme. He said mechanics and cooperation. However, the greatest weakness in the game is the game length. 90 to 120 minutes is about right, even with experienced players. The initial couple turns are very important and will take 15 minutes to play, which can take the wind out of some people's sails. So kind of echoing that sort of that thing that it is a long game. There's a lot to consider, and especially those first turns. And I think this is where this game is tough for beginners.
Yeah.
Like that's why like our first time playing this, we struggled with it.
Yes.
It does provide some nice like little beginner helps. Like it says, hey, pick an easier hero. So it gives like 4 spirits that are considered easier than the other ones.
Yeah.
It gives you like this little player progression card that's helpful. But this idea, when you don't realize what is important to do, when you don't realize like, oh, it's really important to completely eradicate one spot rather than kind of try and spread your energies, do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit over here. When you don't realize that, and you don't realize like how you're kind of getting your guy more powerful, you don't see like how this is all fitting together. Those first turns are brutal, because if you do that first turn, I would say is almost probably the most important turn of the game. Like if you get that first turn right, the rest of the game just feels that much easier. But if you get that first turn wrong, man, this game feels bad. Like
so hard on new players for just kind of the like sense of like, what am I even trying to do? Like, what's a good first move? Like when I teach new games to people, that's often something that I hear. So there's not just the fact that the first turn is just overwhelming, but that it can be a huge morale dump. Like if you don't kind of get under this game right away, man, it could take the wind out of the sails of the whole thing. And with game length, the game is short if you suck.
That's right.
But if you're doing well, it kind of goes on and on and on. And tonight I was at the point where I was kind of like, we were doing pretty well, but I was sort of like, I kind of wish we weren't.
That's right.
Because it means we got to keep going with this and do this. And my experience was a little different than this comments experience where as the turns went on, the turns got longer. Because we were kind of getting a bit more systematic about like, okay, and like really talking things out about if we do this and then we can do this, well, should we go over here? Should we do this? And we were really, this game like begs cooperation. Like there's some cooperative games where you kind of like, everyone just does their best on their turn. This kind of demands that you talk shop, get into each other's heads, really sync up. And honestly, that was a struggle for me because I don't collaborate super well. So it was kind of, yeah.
And there's a lot going on, and so you really have to like communicate well.
Yeah.
Because you've got like your little hand of cards, and your opponent or your teammate has their hand of cards. The game is dense enough that I don't know everything that you've got in your hand, and nor do I want to know. Like, I've got my own stuff to worry about. Like, I don't want to know, but at the same time, I need to know.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, okay, here's what I'm thinking of getting rid of this town. Can you get rid of the 2 explorers that are also there?
Yes.
Like, do you have something that can do that? No, I don't, but I have something that can move to Han. Oh, great. I've got this card, but like, that requires this like long like conversation that you have at the table. So it's like the actual like time that you're physically moving around pieces on the board, not that long. But the amount of time that you spend talking about which pieces you're going to move takes forever.
Yes.
So yeah.
Okay, Ferd 1923 comes in with a 7. And they're saying, clearly an all-time great game. I appreciate how simple the rules are, but the strategic depth makes me tired. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of what we're talking about.
Right.
Is that there's kind of this fairly simple rule set. But I disagree with that. I think the rules are quite complicated in terms of setup and how the games turn. Like the turn that the game has is pretty like, I just kind of let you take care of it. And you kind of had it under control. But there's just like a lot of... And I saw some other comments on BGG around like the fiddliness of moving figures on and off of the board.
Right.
And just this constant... So there's not like... The rules aren't complicated, but they're complex.
Right. Yeah, I didn't find the rules to be so complex. I think the rules are fairly straightforward. Like, you do your turn, then they ravage, then they build, then they explore. The tricky thing, and you hinted at this, is there's 2 powers that you have, and some of your powers happen before the enemy does their thing, some happen after. And getting that little bit straight, that's a bit of a tricky thing. Maybe not a rule thing, but it is one of those things you have to think about when you're playing out those cards.
Let me say this here and now. I hate this about the game. The fast action and the slow action, and the fact that the game's turn takes place, the entirety of the game's turn takes place in between those 2 things is infuriating. I'm trying to make a decision based on what I have to predict the game state is going to look like after we both or the other players do all of their quick actions. And then the game does its actions. And then I got to say, yeah, removing an explorer in a town is going to make a big dent in that. Dumb. Like, because if the slow actions were more powerful,
right,
and like kind of blasted a hole through a region or something, I could see this mechanic working a little better or feeling a little better. But as it is, it's like the fast actions, you push or remove a worker, and the slow action, you do a very similar thing. Like, it's not like the power differential between these 2 types of cards isn't big enough to warrant this huge advantage the board or game itself kind of gets, I think. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely found it to be like brain taxing, like the energy that I had to expend on this game. Like, whereas the first time when we played, we just kind of went out and we didn't really communicate well at all. We just kind of went out and did whatever we wanted, and it ended up terribly. So the second time I was like, okay, all right, we're going to focus. We're going to really put ourselves into this one. So like the first couple turns, I was like, okay, all right, if you do this, cool, and then I do this, and then, okay, and then next turn you could do this, and, but like, by the time I got onto like the 5th turn, I was just like...
tired.
I was like, okay, I got this card. It says I can remove a town. I don't know which town to remove.
Right.
That one, I guess. Like, I couldn't think anymore about...
because it gives, like, we got to a point where we had kind of taken care of some of the immediate concerns, and then beyond that, it was hard to figure.
Yeah, so then I've got a review. It's a rating of a 2 by Freitag.
Let's get into this.
Although this isn't that harsh of a review. I mean, it's so first of all, he starts by, there's kind of 2 things in this review, but he starts off by talking. He says it's an interesting concept, playing the monstrous deities attempting to slaughter the colonists of an island, while you yourself don't really care about the natives. There are a lot of interesting ideas mechanically here, but the game just doesn't work for me. The real flaw for me is that in a game where so little is unknown, all players on the same side all take their actions together and the enemy's actions are mostly telegraphed, you can have a very slow game due to everyone just plotting and trying to optimize, and I just found that painfully slow and dull. It might work better solo. It is basically the poster child of the alpha player problem, since with everyone going at once, there's no reason for one player not to tell you just what to do to optimize.
This is interesting. Yeah, two big things about the game: the theme and the alpha player potential.
For sure.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about the theme. So I think this game is, and reading a lot of like the really like high rated comments versus like a lot of the really low rated comments, this theme is something that people either is the reason why they love this game. They're like, oh, this game's the best. This theme has never been done before. This idea of like spirits pushing colonizers off of an island, that's really innovative and unique, and I love it. And
Yeah,
that's
it's the anti-theme to a lot of board game themes up until this point. So people are like, yes, let's do the other side. And they get excited about it.
And then on the other side, you have people who are like, this is the worst theme like I've ever heard of in my life. This idea of, you know what I mean? Yeah, sure, colonization, I'm sure, is not a perfect endeavor, but, this idea of, like, you're a spirit who's, like, seeking to kill and or at least terrify people, like human beings, off of this island so that they, like, stay as far away from it as possible. And he brings up this concept, which we talked about, which is, like, the spirits have these, like, native peoples, the Dahan, and your relationship to them is, like, you're supposed to care about them, but you're also, like, happy to send them into battle, like, because they also do some fighting for you. And so it's, like, there's also, like, this sort of cavalier, it's like, yeah, these are native peoples, but, like, I don't really care about them because, they can help me get rid of that town. Yeah, a few of them might die, but it's worth it.
This was the whole thing for me that surprised me about the game, because I saw this game as sort of an antidote to sort of more kind of colonial heavy theming, and there's a lot of conversation in the hobby space. All areas of our lives have become hyper politicized over the last few years.
That's right.
And this is one space in the board game hobby that gets that a lot, right? And so I was like, great, like this is a game that people who have a problem with colonial themes can get around, and I was excited about that because I think that's important to offer everybody something in the hobby space. And then I sat down and I was playing the game, and I was like, if you have an ounce of critical thinking in your brain, this is not going to solve the problem that you have about colonial games.
Right.
Because the spirits are colonial in the way that they move, the way they interact with the Dahan people. Where you're right, they're just like, and I was like, this is so interesting. It's a cool game mechanism because it kind of gives you a bit of a shield.
Right.
It's nice to like be like, okay, the Dahan, they're gonna take a damage, but then they'll kind of come back up and they'll be able to do 2 damage. Great, it's fun mechanically. But the theme kind of goes out the window a little bit, or at least what the theme promised.
For sure, yeah. I don't find this to be like a thematic experience of a game. This is for me, like, some people were like, oh, the thematics of this game are amazing. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, it's a cooperative Euro game. Like, that's what this is. But anyways, so that was one thing. And
because there's one card that I had, I forget what it was called exactly, but it was like cashing in a favor. Like it was like it's time, Dahans. Like you've benefited from my presence long enough. Now get in there. Time for some sacrifice.
That's right. I had one card calling them to bloodshed. I'm like, go, kill. Like, Go, do some damage. Like,
so it's a little bit, yeah. I don't love how I'm treating people in this game.
That's right. But yeah, so this idea of like you playing as like almost like a quasi-villain in the game is like an interesting sort of idea. But then the other thing was like this idea of like the alpha gamer, and I've heard some people say that what they like about this game is because it's so complex and because like I've got enough stuff to worry about on my own, I don't really care what you're doing. And so they thought it kind of like solved the alpha gamer problem, but I don't really find that in the sense that I need to know what you're doing. You need to work together. If you're not working together, it's not enough for me just to be like, okay, I'm just going to concentrate on what I'm doing and moving in, it's like I have to be concerned with what you're doing. And so then Dan would play a card. I'd be like, Dan, are you sure you want to play that card? Is that really the best card? Like,
and I was like, no, I'm not sure. Help me. I am overwhelmed and ill-equipped to do any good in this game. I would have appreciated an alpha gamer.
That's right. And like,
I was really surprised because you were like, you had a weird thing going on where you were like afraid to be the alpha gamer. So
well, yeah, like because
oh, did you want to? I don't want to infringe on your turn. I don't want to. I was like, just help. We're desperate.
That's right. No,
we're gonna die.
Usually, I don't like cooperative games for that reason. That there's somebody who knows, or who thinks at least that they know, like the best strategy to go down, and they're just like telling you, and so you want to do something, and they're like, I don't think you should be doing that. And you're like, I don't care. Right. I want to do this thing anyways. And so usually I shy away from cooperative games for one of that reason. And so I don't like to be that gamer. I don't want to be telling you what to do. Like I say, I barely understand what I'm supposed to be doing in this game. But there is this sense where it's like, okay, I need you to help me. Like, I need you to play a card that's going to do something in this area. So, like, do you have anything, that can help me? That's a perennial problem in cooperative gaming. I don't think that this game completely solves that.
Yeah, I don't think it solves it at all. I think the opportunity is wide open. It's just, I do think that the complexity does mitigate it because it's hard to keep track of all that stuff. But it's there, but I don't see that as a bad thing. Like, this game presents a big, complex puzzle. Mm-hmm. However you want to tackle that as a group. And right. If that requires somebody kind of taking the reins and taking the lead and other people sort of offering their opinions in and amongst that, I think this game is appropriate for that kind of approach. Mm-hmm. If you want to take more of a cool, like, standoffy, I don't know if you'll do as well. You got your leadership and then you got your people who are contributing approach.
Right.
And I think that's fine. This is a big son of a gun.
Right. And it's hard. Like, and not only, so I think there's two things. Like, there's the complexity of, like, your hero and the cards and the way that you have to manage that hand and, like, decide, okay, how many cards, do I want to play this hand and what cards do I want to keep and so on. But then there's just, like, the added, like, this is a hard game. Like, cooperative games, in a competitive game, the only difficulty is the guy you're playing against. It's like, oh, this is a hard game because he's really good.
Yeah.
And so I have to beat him. But in a cooperative game, it's like, no, like the game has set this like level of difficulty that it expects you to be at. And if you're not like at that level, then it's like you will lose.
Yeah.
And so that feeling, I think, is, for me, that's like the downside to this game. Like there's a lot of difficulty levels up that we could play. It's like, oh, if you find this game too easy, try this. I was like, I don't want to try that.
Yeah, no thank you. This was hard enough.
That sounds awful.
You're getting a sense of what kind of gamers we are.
That's right.
Wussies. Another 7 from Grifted. I had to ask myself, am I having fun? And the answer was, kind of.
That's right.
This is my experience to a T. This is what I was feeling. We were playing through, and we were doing quite well, and that was exciting. And I was like, finally, we're clearing some stuff off. We're like, I'm getting a handle on how to kind of synergize the energy I'm accumulating, the amount of cards I can play with the cards actually in my hand, getting a bit of a handle on the fast, slow action thing, trying to make that work for us. Getting some help to play some slow actions fast was really helpful. I was having fun, kind of.
Right.
Because the whole time, I was thinking about a million other things that I would rather be doing.
Right.
And this happens with me with some games sometimes. And this is how I kind of rate if it's a good game for me or not. Am I thinking about something else? Am I wishing I was somewhere else? Am I wishing that we were doing something else? And there's plenty of games that are complex that just get me in there. And I'm looking up at the clock maybe, but only because I'm curious. And I'm always surprised at how much time has passed between checking the clock. Whereas this game, I was like, yes, I'm having fun, but I really will be happy when we're through with Spirit Island for the channel and we can play some other stuff. Like, I don't really want to be playing this right now. There's nothing about this game that's really like, I'm just kind of slogging along, a bit excited that we're doing well, recognizing the cool mechanisms and interplay in the game, realizing that, like, okay, this is cool, but, like, not worth it. Not worth it, I don't think. For me.
For sure. This would either be a game that I would get so mad at never winning that I would never want to play it again, or that I would finally win and then say, I've won it. Now I never want to play this game again.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of in the same ballpark regardless.
And I'm same outcome, different paths.
That's right.
Like, I'm at the point now where I am happy to never play Spirit Island again. And I don't think I will. The only way that I'll play Spirit Island again is if I'm at a board game convention or with friends and everyone's just really wanting to play it and I just want to be cool with the cool kids. But that's it. Otherwise, like, no desire for this to be in my collection. No desire for this to be in your collection so that I can play it one time. No desire whatsoever. Am I having fun? Sort of.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't.
No.
It was not a trash game. It's not a game that I want to light on fire.
I don't want my hours back. I'm glad that I did this. But there are a billion games that I would rather play now.
Right. So let's talk about other like cooperative, medium, maybe medium heavy games. So for example, as I was looking at your collection, I saw a game that we played not that long ago, Arkham Horror. That's another like heavy cooperative game.
I totally forgot about this.
And I think like a game like that's a heavy, really involved, difficult cooperative game.
Yep.
I think I like the story elements better in that, so I would prefer to play Arkham Horror over something like Spirit Island.
I would choose Arkham Horror over Spirit Island any day of the week. And you know what? Not a bad comparison in terms of the complexity of the phases and the different things that you have to kind of check off and arrange on the board and make sure, and the board turn is just as devastating as in Spirit Island. I think this is a really cool comparison. But the theme of Arkham Horror is a lot more interesting. Granted, not for everyone.
Right.
And so I think Spirit Island is a bit more accessible across the board, but I would say that Arkham Horror really brings a lot of this same kind of dire, how are we going to make this work, kind of a meaty experience. Arkham Horror is not even like on my top 100, but like I really enjoy that game.
For sure.
But a similar thing where Spirit Island, I would never own, I would never want to play again myself. Arkham Horror, I own, I'm going to keep. I'm not going to like always play it again.
Right.
But it's going to stay here for Halloween. Every Halloween we go play this game, and I am going to enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah, for me, I think if I'm playing like just a cooperative game, for me it would probably be something like Atlantis Rising, something that I know is a considerably easier. At least you can, if you play it at the easiest level, I know I can beat Atlantis Rising. If I want to up it up a couple notches of difficulty, I can do that. The art on Atlantis Rising is amazing. Like the production's great. So for me, that would be something that I would like lean to almost always over something like Spirit Island.
So not comparing them, because I don't think there's a lot to compare with, but Ghost Stories is a super hard cooperative game.
Right.
But what you're doing is much simpler. It's a lot easier to keep track of. You got a few decisions. You kind of, your enemies, like the next thing that you need to do is very clear.
Right.
There's a roll of the dice that kind of keeps this kind of random edge of your seat element. That's quite fun. But it is brutal and it is just coming at you. It is relentless. But it's over quite quickly whether you're winning or losing. Like it's an hour and a half playtime. So for a cooperative game that gives you kind of a sense of desperation, but doesn't overwhelm the players with the rules and the kind of burden of the brain thinking, I would go for Ghost Stories.
So yeah, so there's some options of games that we would prefer more than that. So yeah, thoughts on where does Spirit Island fall for you then?
Yeah, so here's what we ask, right? Is this worthy of its 9 spot on Board Game Geek currently? And just a quick note, people got mad at me last time. The Terraforming Mars wasn't at 5, it was at 4. But here's the thing, it was at 4 when we said it was at 5. Then when I was editing the video, it was at 5 again. So I took the screenshot of it then and put it into the video. So it was at 5 at the most recent thing. When I posted the video, it was at 4 again. Someone commented, it's at 4. I was like, it's just in a weird zone. Jaws of the Lion just can't make up their mind. They're just dancing around. And then when I went back to check, it was at 5 again.
That's right.
So
it's currently at 9. Ark Nova's catching up.
Ark Nova, man. This is the thing. Ark Nova is coming up on our butts, man, and we're gonna have to we're trying to figure out what to do with it. So we're kind of like staving off War of the Ring because maybe we just won't have to play it.
That's right. Maybe Ark Nova will just take its
and
place.
Ark Nova will just have to play it. That'll be fine. Yeah. So Ark Nova, I'm sure, is going to reach the top 10, and we will act accordingly.
That's right.
But here's the thing: is Spirit Island worthy of its 9 spot? And I just want this last comment
For sure. Give us one more comment here.
One more comment, because this captures the whole thing, I think, about Spirit Island. This is a 1.1 rating on Board Game Geek from Theraphone. 1.1. And they say, gotta play more. And this captures the game perfectly. Is like, for some people, this is going to land so raw, so negatively. But then you're always going to be wondering, like, I got to give that another chance somewhere down the road. So maybe I'll change my tune and say, like, I will feel like playing this again one day. But, like, right now, not a chance. Like, I'm done. I'm done with Spirit Island. And I feel like this, like, no way. So for me, number 9... no way, man.
That's right.
Like, no way. What is this? I've said for Terraforming Mars and Brass Birmingham, I can see why it's there. I cannot see why Spirit Island is this high. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not recommending this to any of my party people. Party people that love it, you just keep on loving this thing. Like, all power to you.
That's right.
Like, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad game, right? I'm going to rate this in like Board Game Geeks 6, right? Where it's like, nothing's wrong with the game, just not for me. I'm not going to play it. Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would rate this a high 6, a low 7, somewhere in that ballpark. And I tend to rate games fairly high, so that's a fairly low ranking for me. But I enjoy it. There was nothing... I don't hate this game, but having played it, I'm content to not play it again.
So, party people, there it is. This is kind of our harshest critique yet.
That's right.
We're only 3 games in, though, so we'll see.
Lots of room for more negativity.
That's right. But I'm glad it's coming out. We're being honest with you. Be honest with us. What do you think of Spirit Island down in the comments below? Let us know. We love talking to you. We love sharing thoughts, opinions, the love and joy of board games. That's what we share together, party people. So let's keep it happening in the comments down below. And so we're just keeping on trucking. Thanks to the good people on Kijiji and local Saskatoon area, we pretty much have all of the games on lockdown. We have a plan. I put out a post saying, hey, I'd love to borrow these games. Here's the YouTube channel we got going on. Here's what we're doing. And we got all the games willing to be lent to us in some capacity or another. So we got all lined up. So stay tuned. And until next time, party people.
Have the best day.
Love that. Love that that's still happening.